Man, isn't it beautiful out here today? Oh, I love it. Thought we'd try something different, do a little recording outside, inspired by some of the other shows of this kind of nature, of my similar kind of content that I've been watching. Man, tried to get some of the sunset in the backdrop. I love it. I got a great view of the moon too. I was just thinking it's so beautiful, but even if I turn the camera around, it won't get a good view for you guys anyway. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. I have some good news for you. I know. Not the good news. That's for a different video. That's for another time. We'll definitely talk about that at some point. But not the good news, but I do have some good news for you. You are more than you know. You are a lot more than you know. There is more to you than you could ever possibly begin to fathom. You have an unbelievable amount of potential hidden inside of you if you would choose to go out and find it and unlock it. It's incredible. Spence, that's a bold claim, Spence. Yeah, I know. I know it's a bold claim, but it's true. It's true. You have to believe that. You have to believe it. You know, there was even, if you want some scientific backing on the idea of potential itself, I think this is super interesting. That there was a study conducted a while ago. I don't know the details. I'd have to look it up, or maybe I can find it and link in the description or something. I'm not sure. Where they found the more people are doing new experiences and trying new things and taking on new challenges, anything of that nature, they unlock new DNA that's in their cells, so that they can code for new proteins. So there's literally more of you, more of your DNA that hasn't been utilized, that's inside of you, and you can unlock it. You can choose to grow and become more. You know, we have literal potential within ourselves. That's so awesome. That's so cool. And of course, we have symbolically, we have potential, and metaphorically, we have potential within ourselves. But we have it physically too, and that's just so cool to me. Anyway, but you have to accept that. You have to accept that you have potential within you, because the alternative is cynicism. The alternative is believing that you don't have potential within you, and that's not a good route. And cynicism is, when's the last time you met a cynic that you admired? And I don't mean like intellectual people that might be considered cynical, like Nietzsche. I mean just your average Joe that is generally a cynical person. Anyway, Nietzsche wasn't really cynical. He was, that's a whole another can of worms. I'm not going to get into that. Point is, you don't want to be cynical. And the idea of cynicism, of being distrusting towards yourself and towards the world, it's prideful. You have more to give than that. You really think you know enough about yourself and about your family and friends and community and city and state and nation and the world. You think you know enough about all those people and all those things that you're just willing to distrust it all, and saying that you don't have potential and you don't have the ability to change for the better? No, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. And I hope you don't either. And, one of the things that comes with this realization, if you do choose to accept that you have potential within yourself, which, as I just stated, I think you almost have to, because you actually, when we're thinking about potential, we have this ability with this gift of consciousness that we've been given by God. Or, you don't have to believe in God, but regardless, you've been given the gift of consciousness, and with that comes the ability to extract order from chaos, and to this ability to change things and to mold the world as we see fit, as we think it ought to be. And you have the choice to do that to yourself. You have the choice to die to yourself and be reborn anew. That's the imagery of the phoenix, to die and be born again. And, I think that's the reason, there's a reason that's such a potent symbol for people, because you have this ability to rise from the ashes and to grow. So you do have potential. I think it's irrefutable, but If you still want to be cynical, just go ahead and click off this video. It's not for you. So when we're thinking about potential, there comes this question of a standard, right? Because if you have this sort of unfathomable, unknowable amount of potential within you, it's like, how do you reconcile that? How do you act accordingly in trying to bring that out? Because when you do that and you say you have this unfathomable amount of potential, it's like you immediately should just be like perfect on every level. But obviously we can't hold ourselves to that kind of standard. And I've struggled with this a lot. I've grappled with this for years since I've come to that realization of this idea of this potential, this profound amount of potential that we have within ourselves. I've grappled with that, and I don't have an exact answer for you. It's so tricky. It's such a tricky thing to balance, to try and hold yourself to a high standard, but also a reasonable one, so that you're not, talking down to yourself. That's really my problem. I talk down to myself so bad. There's that great clip, I don't know if any of you guys have seen it, where a guy calls into Theo Von's podcast, where he says something like, what did he say? He said something like, if someone talked to me the way I talk to myself, I'd have to kill that son of a bitch, because I couldn't take that. I couldn't handle that. And that's true. Like, so many of us talk to ourselves in that manner, and it's so unhealthy. It's not the right way to go about it. It's not the right way to treat ourselves to actually become better. It's not the right way. It's also the same sort of question that comes up in the movie Whiplash with Terrence Fletcher. He's this villain. He's an antagonist, this teacher that demands absolute excellence from the members of his band, and he causes Neiman, the main character, to eventually, produce this incredible masterpiece. But doing that, he is ruthless to his students, and causes the rest of Neiman's life to essentially fall apart. And that's still not the right way to achieve greatness, I don't think. There's an element of that that's true, and there's an element of that disciplinarian instinct towards ourselves that we need. But to place everything at the foot of that is wrong. I don't think that's the right method. I don't think that's the right way to go about it. So what is? How do we balance this? How do we balance this incredible amount of potential with actually being reasonable with ourselves? Because you don't want to be too lax. It's like you have this incredible potential within yourself, but your life's a mess. And it's like, well, do you really want to start with, like, I don't know, cleaning your room? It's like that's such a low bar for someone who really does have a lot of potential if they would choose to go out. It's almost demeaning to do that to yourself. So how do we balance that? It's like, well, I don't know. I don't have a perfect answer, but I do have one. This book I read, 12 Rules for Life, Jordan Peterson. You don't have to like Jordan to read this book. I think everyone should read it. I think it's a great book. But one of the things I picked up in that book years ago when I read it, and I picked up a lot of things out of the book, changed the way I thought about a lot of things. But one of the rules in there is to compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. And I think that's the right answer, or at least I think it's on the right track. You have to choose to be better every day, regardless of where you think you ought to be, regardless of, where others are at, and regardless of where you think you should be. It's like we have to choose to treat ourselves reasonably and treat ourselves in a way that allows for sustainable improvement over time. So even if that's starting small, even if it feels demeaning, maybe cleaning your room really is the right option. Maybe it's it's not like there's no use in comparing yourself to others at all, because there are times when looking upwards on the hierarchy of whatever you're looking at is helpful. If you're looking at trying to be a more virtuous person, you can still look up and compare yourself to Christ. Christ is the ultimate example of virtue. Now, are you going to be Christ? No. Good luck with that, man. Yes, it's something to take into account and something to aim for as sort of an ultimate goal. But to expect that from yourself is unreasonable, and it's unlikely, to say the least. So, but maybe on a more tangible level, maybe you are a high school basketball player, and maybe you look up to LeBron James, and maybe that's, that's a worthwhile thing to look at, because LeBron James is the example of someone who is probably the best ever, and at the peak of his game, it's like, yeah, it's worth to look at that and understand that, and to compare it to some extent, compare yourself to that. But you also can't compare yourself to that exact standard. If you're some high school basketball player, you can't expect LeBron James level performance from yourself. You have to be reasonable with yourself. You have to look up and compare yourself to LeBron James, but also do that with the knowledge of where you are now and being reasonable with yourself so that you can have the maximal sustainable improvement. I think that's the right answer. Maximal sustainable improvement. And you have to experiment to find where that limit is with yourself. How much can you train? How much can you get better? For the example of the basketball player, but obviously, whatever it is for you. So I think that's all I have to share for now. Go out there, choose to be better, choose to do new things, explore. You have this profound amount of potential within you, and we all have the choice to go out and find it. So do it, because it will help you, it will help everyone around you, and you will find out what you have to give back to the world. And I promise you, you do have a lot to give back to the world. So I hope you enjoy.